Good morning, viewer. If it isn't morning where you live, it is now. It's amazing how I can change the time of day anytime and anywhere in the world. I truly am built different. Speaking of being built different, there unironically is something different about my body in comparison to the rest of the majority of the human population. The length of my left arm is only a little over half of the length of my right arm. I am a congenital amputee. We all know what an amputee is, but the word I used in front of it may be unfamiliar. In other words, I was born with a limb that hasn't fully developed while I was in the womb. An estimated 1 in 2,000 babies is born with all or parts of a limb missing. Congenital amputation is the least common form of amputation. Why has this happened? I don't have a single clue, but it is what it is. It was only noticed that there was something different about my limb once I was born. Because it wasn't realized before then, there was nothing that could be done to prevent it. Before I go on, I would just like to say that I will only be covering my own experiences in this video. However, if you would like to read about some broader, more varied experiences on the topic of being an amputee, I found this article on Self by Susie Armitage. I will leave the link to it in the description. With that out of the way, on to the rest of the video. In all honesty, I don't feel like I struggle with doing most things. There definitely are some, of course, but I usually realize them when they come up, as I'm just going on through the motions of life. One thing I used to struggle with is clipping the nails on my right hand. Whenever I would need my nails clipped, I would always have to ask my mom, and she would do it for me. Later I found out that I can clip my nails by holding the clippers between my knee and my stump. The clippers occasionally slip, and I twist the tips of my fingers. It only hurts for about 2 seconds, so it isn't that bad. However, if I get a hangnail or something like that, I can't really do anything about it. Using the same method that I use to clip my nails actually makes it worse, and trying to bite them off is ineffective, so I do have to ask somebody else to remove them for me. Probably one of the most embarrassing things that I didn't know how to do for a really long time is tie my shoes. Everybody just told me that they wouldn't be able to tie their own shoes with only one hand, so they don't think I would be able to do it either. So I just went with it like, okay. Whenever I needed my shoes tied, I just asked somebody else to do it, and nobody complained or anything because they saw me as disabled. And shoes without laces exist, so until I was 15, I just didn't know how to tie my shoes. But then one day I thought, wait, this is kinda stupid, and just decided to look at how my mom ties her shoes and copy her to the best of my ability. As it turns out, I could have been tying my shoes this entire time, and I just didn't out of a combination of two-handed people doubting me, accommodations, and laziness. I guess the moral of this anecdote is that sometimes it's okay to try and do something you think you can't do, as long as there's no chance of getting hurt. At the worst, you'll just realize that you were right initially, and that you couldn't do it, and you can go back to whatever it was you would previously use or resort to for certain tasks. There are some things that I don't need to do, but I want to do, yet can't because of my disability, such as using a sewing machine. I can thread a sewing machine, but I can't maneuver the fabric in a way that makes the stitching look clean with only one hand and a stump. I thought I could use optimism and just try over and over again to do it, but this is just not one of those things. On the other hand, or not. I thought I wouldn't be able to sculpt because all previous attempts at it were done when I was younger. I made so many crappy Pokemon figurines out of Sculpey. Actually, describing them as figurines is far too generous. The point is, they were bad, and I was convinced that I'd just never be able to sculpt something that looks good with one hand and a stump. But then, I made this, and discovered that I am actually capable of making a sculpture that doesn't look like a wad. I guess my ability just magically improved with age, or I got possessed by the ghost of okay sculpting. Back on the topics of things I can't do, riding a bike. Even with a prosthetic, and I'll be elaborating on this topic further into the video, I can only ride for about a few meters, and no matter how good of a rhythm I have, the bike will fall over to the right, and the front wheel is constantly moving to the left and right. I don't quite know why, and to be honest, I don't really care or have the determination to learn how to ride a bike in particular. I prefer rollerblading and ice skating a lot more. I can't really peel things like fruits or vegetables using a peeler. A lot of the time, my solution for tasks that would normally require two hands is wedging an object either between my knee and my stump, or my torso and my stump, in order to hold it. My solution for peeling a potato would be putting it between my knee and stump, and then trying to peel it using my right hand. But that's just really inefficient. It would be extremely easy to peel the skin off my knee or arm instead. It doesn't help that the end of my stump is already potato-shaped as it is. You may be thinking, you mentioned having a prosthetic before, so why don't you hold the potato with the prosthetic and then peel it? That's not a bad question, but in reality, it isn't that simple. The prosthetic is more of an object attached to your actual body than it is like a body part. So basically, I'd be flexing my arm to uphold a heavy object that's grasping another object. More of my energy goes into holding up the prosthetic than it does the actual task I'm supposed to be focused on. However, this isn't a problem when it comes to slicing things. As long as I can rest the prosthetic flat on the table and then grasp the object, it isn't too bad. A question you may have is if I can drive. The answer to that would be yes. In my country of origin, I have a driver's license. I never trusted myself when it comes to driving, though, and I have never driven a car without one of my parents next to me. I wouldn't consider myself having one arm to be the main problem, but it certainly doesn't help. But do you use your prosthetic to drive? Absolutely not. The prosthetic can lock onto the wheel, and that can be lethal. Those are all of the things I can think of concerning physical ability. It isn't something that I think about much in relation to my deformity compared to... To me, my stump is just my body. I don't see anything weird or unusual about it. It just is what it is. But for other people, it's an anomaly. Upon realizing that I have a deformity, people can say or do some weird, annoying, or rude things. Most of the occurrences I will be talking about were more common when I was younger than they are now. Probably because I was surrounded by other young people, and young people have more audacity than older people. Often when I'd go outside, I'd catch somebody blatantly staring at my arm. They'd notice that I can see what they're doing, and then they'd hit me with that awkward white person smile. You know the one. And then look away. Children are the worst when it comes to staring. They don't even try to pretend that they didn't notice. They always have the most shocked, horrified facial expressions, and then call for their parents to point it out to them as well. Like, geez, kid, I'm sorry for existing in public. I get it. Kids often don't have an awareness of deformities, accidents, or death unless they themselves unfortunately had contact with such subjects in their life starting from such a young age. I still don't like getting stared at. If I pass a kid, I do my best to hide my arm from their view. If they notice once they're out of my view, it's not my problem. At that point, they can crap their pants for all I care. Stares are often followed with a question. A very specific question. When I hear the words, I don't mean to be rude, but I always know exactly what follows. What happened to your arm? Now you all know the answer to that because I said it at the beginning. But I do wonder why strangers think it's an appropriate thing to ask. Why would it be inappropriate? You have a bodily deformity, and that's unusual. Of course people want to know. They want to know and they're curious, but do they need to know? What are they going to do with that information? When you see that somebody is missing a limb, one of your first thoughts may be that something traumatic has happened to them, that has led to the loss of their limb. When people ask what happened, there's an expectation to hear something gruesome and traumatic. And despite the expectation, people don't stop and think that by asking this question, they may cause the person they're asking to relive traumatic memories for their curiosity. As stated by Aaron Ball, an amputee from the article I recommended at the beginning, these are just strangers, and they're asking me about the most traumatic time in my life. And then they're just walking away, and I'm left with all of these feelings. In my case, no traumatic event has occurred, so the worst a person may be doing by asking me is just annoying me a little bit. But this is something I would like you to consider the next time you think about asking a person who has a deformity what happened to them. Whenever somebody would ask me what happened, I'd always say the same old, I was just born this way. I just came out like this. And honestly, I felt like a robot repeating the same boring response over and over again. Knowing that I'm tired of saying the same thing, others look kind of bored when I tell them, and also just feeling generally annoyed, I decided to take some inspiration from my dad and change things up a bit. My father is an immigrant, and being an immigrant, he would often complain about people asking him obnoxious questions about his accent and where he came from. He would always try and come up with some snarky or witty replies in response to people asking him where he's from. He would ask me for input, or if his responses would make sense from the perspective of an American, so I decided to ask him for advice on some snarky responses I could give to people asking me about my arm. My father, along with some people I knew, all wanted me to tell other people that I got my arm bitten off by a shark. I hated this idea because there was already some guy from my school who had given me the nickname Soul Surfer. For those of you who don't know, Soul Surfer is an American biographical film about Bethany Hamilton, a woman who had her arm bitten off by a shark when she was surfing. Sharks already have a bad reputation, and I don't want people to see me as a victim because I'm not. But it did give me an idea. I decided that the next time somebody was going to ask me what happened to my arm, I'd tell them that I cut it off. And I ate it. Roxism! You're such a prick! I know. But hey, they get the shocking, sensationalist answer they wanted, and I get an entertaining reaction. Everybody wins. Now, for the record, I can only remember doing this about twice, and I wouldn't say this to just anybody. It depends on the vibes and the demeanor of the person who's asking. If somebody looks really innocent or distraught or concerned, I'd probably just tell them what really happened. But if I don't like the person's tone, or if they have some weird entitled asshole energy, I'll tell them my fake answer, and I won't feel bad. Like I said before, why do you need to know, and what are you going to do with that information? You are a stranger, and I'm at the grocery store, inspecting the shredded cheese section. Leave me alone, bud. Honorable mentions for weird shit people have told me or done upon realizing I have half an arm. Asking if getting hit by my arm would be painful. Yes, Goofy. If you get hit by a bone, it's going to hurt. A mom walking up to me saying, "My son wants to be like you and not have an arm." I know that children can be weird and say things like that, but you are a grown-ass woman. What in God's green earth made you think that was an appropriate thing to say? People asking me what it's like to have one functional hand, after I have told them that I was born without one. I never had that hand to begin with. This is the norm for me. I might as well ask you what it's like to have two hands. I doubt you would know how to answer that. A kid from when I was in middle school saluting me as I passed them in the hallway. That one's kind of funny, actually, I don't know. Two teenaged guys following me around a neighborhood when I was an elementary schooler, calling me sausage arm repeatedly. A guy from high school telling some random people that I can't fight because I'm missing my arm, and I let him borrow one of my spare pencils that I'd never use and I didn't ask for it back. A kid my age I was playing with on the playground telling me he didn't want to play anymore once he noticed that my arm was missing, and he ran back to his mother. People telling me that they feel sad when they look at my arm. The only thing you should feel sad about is these nuts. People looking shocked, horrified, or scared upon seeing my arm. The only thing you should be shocked, horrified, or scared about is these nuts. And many more. I'm sure by now that you get the idea. I have some stronger feelings on the social aspect of things, but I'm going to dial back now and talk about prosthetics. Before I tell you more about my thoughts and experiences using a prosthetic, I would like to remind you that there are many different kinds of amputees with varying needs and experiences. Everything I am about to say is only about my experience as a person with a congenital arm amputation, and it doesn't have to apply to other people like me. With that out of the way, I don't really like wearing my prosthetic, and I just about never use it. I grew up learning to use what I have, and I'm used to doing things without a prosthetic. Ironically enough, I feel like using a prosthetic is actually more disabling for me than not using one. There's this thing attached to my arm, and it's heavy. It's squeezing the end of it, and it's uncomfortable. I can use it to grasp things, but I'm already holding the weight of the prosthetic along with the item I'm grasping. The prosthetic simply can't be compared to my right hand, whose weight feels natural and comfortable, whose fingers I can move with precision and feeling. The prosthetic I have isn't one of those robotic ones that you often see in science fiction, although now they do exist in reality. They're just expensive and I don't really need one. My mom tries to convince me that a bionic hand is something that I should want, something I should have so that I could show it off and impress the two-handed people. But that's all it would be for me. An accessory, there to make people think I'm cool instead of, well, saying and doing the weird things that I have mentioned in the previous section. And there are other people who actually need them and whose quality of life could improve drastically from having them. Despite never really using my prosthetic, I would like to show you how it looks and how it works. It is a body-powered prosthetic that has a rig and a strap, and I obtained it when I was 17 years old. cover your stump before you hump. Fuck, I hate this part. Okay. So, this is what it looks like. So you can see there's a rig right here. The strap. So the way that a body-powered prosthetic works is very simple. When I move my arm forward like this, it closes. When I flex my shoulders like this, it also closes. And that's really all there is to it. I can twist this, depending on my needs. And, yeah, it's that simple. It's like using a claw machine. Nice to meet you. Also, I do have a left hand, actually. It's just that, it's the size of a pea. That big thing right there is supposed to be a thumb. And the rest of it is just a hand that has its fingers, like, clumped together. It's not usable at all whatsoever. It's just there. It's just like a growth. I can feel pain in it, however. Like, if I get hurt right here, it's gonna hurt like a bitch. It's gonna hurt. When I was a child, I remember having a nightmare that I was using a pair of scissors and I cut this off on accident, and, yeah, even in the dream it was painful. I don't know what this dent is. It kind of reminds me of one of those water toys that people stick their fingers in. But, yeah, I mean, this is a closer look at it. Thank you for your attention. I wanted to make the kind of video that I like to watch where people talk about something. For all of you out there who like to listen to people talk about things while you draw or play video games, this one is for you. If you are a person who has a physical deformity or an amputation, I would also like to know about your thoughts or experiences, if you would be comfortable sharing them. Has anything in this video been relatable to you? Has something in this video not been relatable to you? I normally don't like being asked questions, as usually when I'm asked or approached about the subject, I'm just outside doing my own thing. However, because this video is on the topic of my arm, I don't mind if you would like to ask a question about it in the comments. I hope you found this to be entertaining or maybe slightly educational. Goodbye.
Please stop asking me about my body. Tired of having to say that